Derivatives. Given xt, position as a function of time, we might want to ask what the velocity is at any moment. We know that the velocity is defined as the rate at which the position is changing, but how do we calculate it from xt? Velocity cannot be determined from knowing the position at just one time. Given the location of a car and no more information, we have no idea what its speed is. Somehow, we need to take advantage of the information about the position at other times. Just looking at the graph of the function, we get the general impression that the velocity of the car is related to the slope of the curve at each point, how sharply it is rising or falling. Where the curve is basically flat, time passes but the car doesn't move very much. The velocity is small. Where the curve is steep, the car moves a lot in just a little time. The velocity is large. So we want to imagine drawing a straight line that exactly grazes our xt curve at some time t0, called the tangent line at that point. The velocity of the car at the precise moment t0 is just the slope of that particular tangent line. We need to develop a systematic procedure for defining and calculating the slope of the tangent line at each point. That would be easy to do if the car were moving at a constant velocity. In that case, the function would just be a straight line, as in the next figure. Then the slope, and therefore the velocity, is straightforward to calculate. It is just the change in position divided by the corresponding change in time. In symbols, let's write the change in position as delta x and the change in time as delta t, where delta is the capital version of the Greek letter delta, and is often used to represent the amount by which a quantity changes. The notation delta x represents a single individual quantity, the change in x, not some quantity delta times the quantity x. Then, the velocity along a straight line path is v equal delta x divided by delta t. Now, we come to one of the basic insights of calculus. As long as our function is relatively smooth, not overly jagged or randomly jumping from value to value, it will look straight over very short intervals, even if overall it's pretty curved. As we zoom into higher and higher magnification, a curved line begins to look straighter and straighter. This suggests a strategy. Fix some time t at which we would like to calculate the velocity. Now pick some extra amount of time delta t and consider the time interval in between an initial time t and a final time t plus delta t. Given our function, we know both the position xt of the car at the initial time and also its position xt plus delta t at the final time. We can therefore calculate the total change in position over this time, which is simply delta x equal xt plus delta t minus xt. If the function as a whole is curved rather than straight, we can divide the total change in position by the total change in time to find the average velocity over that interval, or v average equal delta x divided by delta t. This looks similar to 2.3 equation, but the expression was for the unique velocity along a constant velocity path, while this is the average velocity for some specific time interval along any given path. This isn't quite what we are looking for. We don't want the average velocity over some arbitrary interval. We want the instantaneous velocity at each moment. But you can maybe see where we are going. The time interval delta t that we choose to consider was arbitrary. We can make the interval anything we like, so let's zoom in. We can choose smaller and smaller values of delta t, implying smaller and smaller values of delta x. While both delta x and delta t can shrink all the way to 0, their ratio delta x per delta t approach some number that need not be zero. In fact, it approaches exactly what we are looking for, the slope of the tangent line at our initial point. The procedure we just outlined is called taking the limit as delta t approach 0. 0 divided by 0 isn't anything at all, mathematically speaking. It is just undefined nonsense. But we can take the limit of delta t and delta x as they both individually approach 0, and their ratio, the velocity f, is well defined. We call this the derivative of the function xt, and write it in a suggestive notation as v equal limit of delta x divided by delta t equal dx per dt. That's it. That's what a derivative is. The slope of a curve at some point defined by taking the limit of the slope of a sequence of lines that get closer and closer to the tangent line at the point. We consider the particular case of x as a function of t, where the derivative is the velocity, but the idea is much more general. The acceleration, for example, is the derivative of velocity with respect to time. Velocity is measured in meters per second, while acceleration is measured in meters per second, since it's the rate of change of velocity. The acceleration due to gravity of a freely falling object near the Earth is 9.8 meters per second, sometimes abbreviated as meter per second square. Often we care about some function of x, which we can write fx, and its derivative will be df dx. Every function is a function of some variable, and we can calculate the derivative with respect to that variable. It makes no difference whatsoever what symbol we use to denote the variable. There is just a label we choose at our convenience. It's useful to our comprehension to call time t and distance x, but that's totally up to us. The quantities dx and dt are known as infinitesimal. They look like numbers we divide to get v, but the reality is a bit more subtle. If they actually were numbers, their value would be 0, and that's not good. Rather, they represent the idea of the limit of delta x and delta t as those two quantities both approach 0. The ratio of these two infinitesimals is a well-defined number, even if they individually are not. All I can say is, mathematicians have put an enormous amount of thought into making all this seem respectable. As physicists, we tend not to worry too much. If it works, we give the thumbs up and move on to the next problem. Two things might be bugging you at this point. First, it seems almost too easy. All we did was define the derivative by being very persnickety about the slope of a line tangent to a curve. Something as reputationally intimidating as calculus should be harder than that. And second, at the end of the story, it's still not completely clear what we are supposed to do with this definition. It's a bit abstract. If we are handed an actual function or the result from an odometer, do we really have to go through all of this rigmarole to find its derivative? These two issues are related, and they basically cancel each other out. If this were a real calculus class, you would immerse yourself in a tedious but reassuringly explicit set of rules for how to actually calculate the derivatives of given function, a process known as differentiation. Consider a very simple function, fx equal ax plus b, where both a and b are fixed parameters, often just called constant. This is known as a linear function, since plotting it will reveal a straight line. We can find the derivative of this linear function simply by thinking about it. The constant b has no effect on the slope of the line, so we can ignore it. And the constant a just is the slope. If we change x by an amount delta x, then fx changed by a delta x. So delta fx delta x equal a no matter what x itself is. We therefore have d dou x ax plus b equal a. The derivative of our linear function is simply a constant equal to the number multiplying x in the original function. But differentiation is usually not so simple. Most curves have a slope that changes from point to point. The derivative of the parabolic function fx equal x squared, for example, is given by dx squared dx equal to x. We can see this in the figure, which plots the function fx equal x squared as well as the slope of the tangent lines at certain points. X equal -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. For negative values of x, the parabola is sloping downward and its derivative is negative. For positive x, the derivative becomes increasingly positive. There are analogous formulas for the derivatives of x raised to other power, and for the square root of x and the logarithm of x and sin or cosine of x, and the product of any two such functions, and so on. See Appendix A for some examples. Learning all of these techniques is what makes calculus class a bit of a slog sometimes, but it's also what makes it useful to the working scientist. Our goal here is understanding the world as best we can, not training to become professional physicists. Basically, we get to concentrate on just the fun part. Differentiation gives us a way to calculate the slope of a curve, for example, to extract the velocity of a car from knowing its position over time. With that knowledge in hand, we can move on.